And to add insult to injury, they were laughing at us. But you're okay with that. Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and that you had a great week. To all of my house guests, come in, make yourselves at home, make yourselves comfortable. If you're visiting my channel for the first time and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i, welcome to my place. House rules. Please do not watch this video if you have absolutely no interest in the subject matter, as indicated by the thumbnail. You struggle to simply accept other people's opinions when they don't necessarily align with yours. You're a professional point misser. You are not able to engage respectfully. Remember that there are countless other channels that cater specifically to your needs and preferences. Therefore, please feel free to exit this video and engage with their content instead. Well, ladies and gents, I'm sure most of you are aware by now that it's been reported that Spotify and Harry and Meghan have gone their separate ways. In addition to that, they've had another label attributed to them. This time, it's Grifters. And predictably, it didn't take long for the usual suspects to have their voices heard.
Overnight, transatlantic TV star Kelly Osbourne let rip at the Ginger Whinger with this savage assessment.
He's a whining, whinging, complaining, woe is me, I'm the only one that's ever had mental problems. Like, my life was so hard. Everybody's life is hard. Yeah, you were the prince of a country who dressed up as a Nazi, and now you're trying to come back as the Pope? Suck it.
That came off the back of this stinging rebuke from Spotify executive Bill Simmons just hours after the firm pulled the Sussexes' £15 million Flopcast deal.
Wish I had been involved in the Meghan and Harry leave Spotify negotiation. The fucking Grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them.
So, Tom Bauer, look, it's great to have you here, by the way, Meghan's biographer. It's a uniquely American word, isn't it, grifter, which means small-scale swindlers. Do you think Bill Simmons used that word purposefully?
Oh, absolutely. I think the timing was on purpose, too, because the Dior deal, which we'll talk about in a minute, that was gossip around LA for weeks. So I think he saw a moment to sabotage it. But the Grifters story is fascinating because, coincidentally, I heard the reason why he called them the Grifters, and that is because they're scroungers, the Sussexes. And I heard this particular story, which is extraordinary, which is that Harry and Meghan were invited to this sun-kissed place by the beach. And they were staying for a couple of days, had arrived with the host's private jet, as usual, and wanted to leave. And then they heard that someone else who was there was quite an interesting person and also had a beautiful house by a beach. And Meghan went up to her and said, "Is there any, let us talk, let us become friends." The following day, after they were taken back home on their private jet, or the host's private jet, Harry called this particular woman and said, "Is there a chance that we could borrow your house? Meghan wonders whether we could have it." And the woman was a bit puzzled by this, but said in the end, okay. A following day, Harry calls and says, Meghan also says, "Can we get there in your private jet?"
Oh, my God.
And that is exactly what the Grifters is all about. It's about scrounging. It's about Harry and Meghan constantly looking for freebies. whether it's jets, it's houses, meals, whatever. And that is, in the end, what drove Spotify and also Netflix mad.
Because presumably Spotify were paying a lot of money for all of their stuff, for all of their demands, but they weren't actually receiving the content in return.
And not only not receiving the content, but constantly demands for expenses because they wanted to live for nothing. Which brings us on to what actually, where the Sussex is up to all this year. And we've said many times over the past few weeks, Dan, that Meghan's silence is really odd. She's building up to something big. And there's no doubt that in LA over the last few weeks, there's been this gossip about the Dior story, which the Mail on Sunday broke big time this weekend. Now, what's really interesting is, of course, Bill Simmons, not coincidentally, saying they're grifters. But what's really interesting in the rebranding of the Sussexes is, what I also heard very recently is, that Meghan decided that her real object in life was to be Diana. That has always been her passion. That has also been Harry's passion. And Meghan went to the extent of suggesting that they should drop the name Windsor and take the surname Spencer. So she'd be Meghan Spencer, the new Diana. And
So this is a plan that they have actively discussed?
They've actively discussed it, not only by themselves, but with others too. This isn't something that's plucked only in their minds. They were actively trying to recast themselves as Diana and Meghan Spencer. And that is...
So he would go from Harry Windsor to
Harry Spencer too, his mother's name.
But that would be a devastating
blow
to his father.
Absolutely. It's all about the break-off. And they also have given up the Sussex title because you've got the new incarnation of Diana, which I think it all makes sense if you look at the extraordinary photographs of Meghan this weekend. Very thin, very, very thin. Getting ready for the Dior modelling, the new Sharon Stone or Cara Devington. I mean, the image was important, and it's all now sabotaged. Everything is broken up, and that's a great blow to them because they're looking for something new, and now they're going to have to look for something again.
So potentially changing their name, I mean, that's a seismic thing to do. They'll be aware of that. Presumably, Tom, the suggestion there is they acknowledge that this has been a disaster so far in Hollywood. It hasn't worked out as they hoped.
Absolutely, and that was, I think, what we hadn't realised until now, and that's why Dior, it's just a way out of it now. I say we never negotiated. She was looking for a whole new world.
Let's just clarify, Dior, once the grifter comment came out, and once the story ran in the Mail on Sunday, Dior have seen the backlash and quickly said, no.
We never would talk about it, and they certainly were. But the whole point is for the Sussexes, as they still are, and they're not yet the Spencers, this is a major blow. Now what is he going to do to earn money? What's she going to do? And it would have been wonderful to have been the face of Dior. That's a huge money spinner. And so they are really, at the end of it, they've sabotaged themselves. They shot themselves in the foot by being so controversial. And I think that is what people like Dior and other corporations fear. They don't want to be associated with that sort of controversy.
So what the Sussexes is a tainted brand?
A tainted brand, even a damaged brand, and now a brand which is looking for survival.
And so it's going to be really fascinating to see where they get people to spend this sort of money on them again.
And they need a lot. They need at least $3 to $4 million a year just to pay their overheads.
Because you've obviously got the house, there's a big mortgage on that house, but it's the costs, isn't it, of running that sort of estate, not to mention, by the way, the legal battles that Harry insists on pursuing. And at great cost, right?
And he's got no concept of money. He's never had to worry about money in his life. He'll now have to start worrying about money. She has worried about money all her life, which has been her driving force. And she suddenly finds herself with the possibility of not having this huge income. And that really does worry her. And I think that does put real pressure on them and their relationship.
But Tom, I mean, look, fascinating revelations, and there's clearly so much going on behind the scenes. But when you look at all of this, though, on a sort of macro level, I guess, why did they not just do the work? Why did they not just make the podcast episodes? I mean, are they really that lazy and entitled? Because basically Spotify and Netflix delivered them an opportunity of a lifetime. Did they not realise what they had handed to them on a platter?
Well, Harry has never had to do any work, really. He's only taken orders in the army, and that was the end of his life. He's never done anything. Meghan really has never had the discipline other than as an actress in Suits, and then everything was done for her. She came, read her lines perfectly, and went away. Spotify was actually expecting them to produce the goods, and that requires a lot of imagination, hard work, but also inspiration and talent. And that's one thing which Harry
severely lacking, isn't it?
And Meghan hasn't either. Meghan is a one-trick pony. It was just Suits.
Well, what's so sad, isn't it? They've realised, and it's a crushing realisation, I guess, because they don't want to do it anymore, at least they claim they don't. The only thing anyone's interested in commercially is them slagging off their own family, and that just brings you so much terrible karma.
Well, and that's what's so interesting, that 2 or 3 weeks ago, if you remember, we were discussing how they said they weren't going to discuss any more their family. And now we know why. It was because Dior, or whoever, was saying, you can't be controversial anymore.
Oh, I see.
And that was why they decided they had to be silent. And now that's all up again in the air.
Because, of course, there are a lot of consumers for these luxury brands who are totally disgusted with the way that they have turned not just on their own family, but also the royal institution.
I think so. That's what's so puzzling. I could not understand why would Dior want to be associated with such a tainted person as Meghan. She presents controversy. The one thing Dior is not, with all their different faces over the years, is controversial. So it was... People talk about attitude and things like that, but I couldn't see that. I couldn't see how Meghan could be an influencer other than for a small minority. But for them now, the pressure is on. They are now in the firing line, and that is what's so interesting. Meghan and Harry have now got to really find a new brand, a new role.
I've made my observations, and I just want to address a few points in this video because, as usual, none of this is logical to me. This is the same Kelly Osbourne who 7 years ago backpedaled when Rosie Perez challenged her when she made this statement.
Latinos here in this country that do agree that the immigration problem is a problem and it does need to be addressed and it does need to be fixed.
Interesting.
But making those comments, those racist comments, do not help.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that,
No.
you know what I mean? Like, when I'm saying that
There's more jobs to be
in LA, they always...
But
they
Latinos are not only the only people
I didn't mean
doing
it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
Yikes! Kelly Osbourne under fire after that comment on The View Tuesday. She said it during a discussion about presidential candidate Donald Trump. Kelly's comments were met with groans and moans from the rest of the panel.
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm saying that...
There's more jobs to be
in LA, they always...
But
they
Latinos are not only the only people
I didn't mean
doing
it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
Okay.
Like, I'm not part of this argument.
The 30-year-old TV personality took to her Facebook page to address the incident, writing, "I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not. Although I was stopped mid-sentence by Rosie and couldn't finish my point, I will not let Rosie take responsibility for my words. I should have known better as I was on The View and it was live. I've learned a very valuable lesson." Still, Rosie Perez tweeted an apology to Kelly after the show, writing, "My apologies, Kelly Osbourne. I took your point wrong. Trump, Latinos, my bad. Your heart is so pure and righteous. I adore you."
And this self-proclaimed Meghan biographer, Tom Bower, is the same person who levelled accusations against Doria Ragland, saying that she had spent time in prison, had criminal convictions for some kind of financial misconduct. Now, if you cast your mind back to March, when I did a Mother's Day video, when it was Mother's Day in the UK, and I addressed this in that video, and went on to show that his claims were unfounded. So when it comes to these types of characters, I don't know about you, but I don't take them at face value. If you've watched enough of my videos, you know that I question every single thing. With regard to Harry's mother, Princess Diana, I recall that he said that Meghan had reminded him of her with regard to Meghan's dedication to charity work. I'm not aware, and I defer to your greater knowledge, my house guests, because I always say that you know much more than I do. I'm not aware of any time when Meghan herself has said that she wants to replace Diana, she compares herself to Diana. I've never heard that, I've never seen that, I've never read that. Neither have I heard at any time until I came across the video I've just played you that they wanted to change their surname to Spencer. Now, if you're going to change your name, your surname, and you're about to get married, would you not have made that arrangement before you actually tied the knot, and especially before you brought children into the world? Their surname is Mountbatten Windsor. It's on their children's birth certificates. Where did this notion that they wanted to change their name to Spencer, where did that come from? Like I say, I bow to your greater knowledge, my house guests, because seriously, I'd be interested to know where this actually came from. It's really concerning when you have fully fledged adults who come out with this garbage in an attempt to utterly destroy the reputation and character of a woman who hasn't done anything to them, because I'm still asking the question that I asked towards the end of last year. What has Meghan done? It's fascinating the amount of power that Meghan seems to hold, to the point where these guys are literally frothing at the mouth on a daily basis to make sure that they grind this woman into the ground. It's like they take it up as an article of clothing every day to put on this hatred. And they won't keep that to themselves. They want you to hate this woman as well. And if you're a person that has independent thought, don't you find it very weird that they behave like this? But they continue to do it because it works, because the majority of people that hear them talk like this, they're swept up into the frenzy, as I've said many times in these videos. They have the purest hatred towards her simply because she breathes the air on this planet, simply because she dares to exist. How dare she? How dare she? How dare she be at the top of the pyramid where you can't get to? How dare she have the privilege and wealth and the access to certain things that you'll never have access to as a journalist, as a so-called journalist? How dare she? Last year, Spotify also parted ways, if you didn't know, with the Obamas, who in 2020, I believe, signed a $25 million deal, which included Barack's podcast with Bruce Springsteen called Renegade, born in the USA. Michelle also had her own podcast called the Michelle Obama Podcast, and that was among the most popular original podcasts that Spotify had released in 2020. So according to this article that I'd come across on TechCrunch.com, Bloomberg reported in April last year that the family wanted an agreement that would see their content distributed widely across various platforms, and that's what this deal with Audible will allow the Obamas to do, because they left Spotify and gone to Audible. It will also let the couple take a more behind-the-scenes role in future productions, a request that Spotify reportedly met with pushback when it came to their recent negotiations. At Higher Ground, which is the Obamas' company, we have always sought to lift up voices that deserve to be heard, and Audible is invested in realising that vision alongside us, former President Obama said. I'm looking forward to partnering with them to tell stories that not only entertain but also inspire. So based on that, I think it would be fair to say that, as always, mainstream media appears to have spun this story in such a way that Meghan is at fault and she was not delivering the goods. I listened to the Archetype series, not when it was initially released, but much later, and I found it quite revealing and quite insightful. There were things that I heard on there that I'd never heard on mainstream media, not even on social media. Now, the accusation was levelled at her online that her podcast was boring. Meghan herself was boring, and also that she faked interviews. So my question was, if Meghan was so boring and these interviews were faked, why did Spotify release these episodes? Why did they release the Archetype series in the first place? If the interviews were fake, why have Serena Williams, Mariah Carey, Andy Cohen, Mindy Kaling, Issa Rae and Candice Bushnell, just to name some of those interviewees, why have none of those filed a lawsuit against Meghan, saying that she did not even interview them? I heard these interviews, and the interaction was very natural. I think some of them took place over Zoom. They were very natural. I didn't find anything fake about them. And that's not me saying that because it's Meghan. I just didn't find anything fake about them. They were quite interesting as far as I was concerned. And it gave an insight to those being interviewed. It wasn't about Meghan. She was asking the questions and allowing them to talk.
This article is taken from the independent.co.uk. Today, 22nd of June 2023. Andy Cohen defends Meghan Markle amid claims she didn't conduct podcast interviews. Her podcast is Conversations with People, Cohen explains. Andy Cohen has defended Meghan Markle against claims that she didn't conduct her own interviews for her Archetypes podcast after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex ended their deal with Spotify. The 55-year-old TV host addressed the rumours swirling about Meghan and her husband, Prince Harry, during a recent interview with Us Weekly. While Cohen didn't mention the publication by name, he seemingly addressed how Pod News claimed that some of Meghan's interviews for Archetypes were done by her co-workers, with the Duchess's voice being edited into the episode later. Speaking to Us Weekly, Cohen confirmed that these claims were false, noting that Meghan, of course, does her own interviews. He also said that when he appeared on Archetypes in November 2022, Meghan interviewed him for it. That's an insane rumour, he said. Her podcast is Conversations with People. How would she not have? Of course she did. Last week, Spotify announced that it would be ending its deal with Meghan and Harry after the streaming platform launched the first season of Archetypes. The couple's production company also confirmed the news in a statement which read, Spotify and Archwell Audio have mutually agreed to part ways. Regarding why the couple ended the deal with Spotify, Wall Street Journal reported that they haven't met the productivity benchmarks required to receive the full payout from the deal, citing insiders familiar with the matter.
When these broadcasters come and give an overview about anything that Meghan's done, they are instructed not to review the whole content. It's only salient, what they consider to be salient points, and then they give their remarks. So they don't get the whole context of what they're supposed to be listening to or watching. They don't take the time to actually listen because, number one, I guess they don't have the time, and number two, they can't be bothered. But in my earliest videos, when I started talking about this couple, I said context is everything. And that's why I say you have to question everything that you're told in the media, whether it's mainstream or whether it's on social. Furthermore, if the podcast was of such dire quality, why did it hold the #1 position in 7 countries, including the UK? And why has it been awarded by way of recognition? Make it make sense, please. Make it make sense. So, based on all of that, could it be that Meghan, like the Obamas, met with resistance and inflexibility when it came to contract renegotiation and therefore decided to walk away? Because the media have told you that Spotify axed them. Harry worked with Audible when he was releasing his memoir, Spare, at the beginning of this year. And that's how I consume that content. I listen to it on Audible. So it wouldn't surprise me if Harry and Meghan follow in the Obamas' footsteps and transfer their podcast operations to Audible if they prove to be more flexible, because that makes sense to me. So when we talk about Dior now, apparently Dior want to distance themselves from Meghan, which they're well within their rights to do. That's their prerogative. But it puzzles me that when Meghan wore Dior while executing her royal duties, she was no less controversial then, and I didn't hear Dior kicking up a stink or complaining about her at that time. It can't be denied that whatever Meghan wears, whether it's jewellery, clothes, bags, shoes, whatever she gives attention to, it's highlighted, and it definitely draws attention to that brand, and the brand is more likely to experience a significant increase in sales and recognition as a result. So Meghan is undoubtedly, definitely one of the world's biggest influencers, and she's not on social media. And to be fair, the same observation can be made about Kate Middleton, the now Princess of Wales.
This article is from The Telegraph on 19th of June 2023. Duchess of Sussex denies deal with Dior, the brand of choice for generations of royal rebels. We should not expect to see Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, rolling through a field of peonies for a new Christian Dior perfume advert anytime soon. A source at the French fashion house has denied rumours of an imminent deal, telling The Telegraph that reports crowning a new Duchess of Dior have left the team in Paris nonplussed as to how the story came about. A spokesperson for the Sussexes has also said the story is not true. But Dior clearly does hold significance for the Sussexes. The couple have routinely worn the label at high-profile events and, in doing so, are continuing a long-standing connection between the Parisian house and the British royal family, dating back over 70 years. In that time, Dior has masterfully navigated the internal politics attached to royal family life, at one point dressing both Wallis Simpson and Princess Margaret. History shows, then, that the Sussexes may be more valuable as unofficial ambassadors than official ones. Meghan's dedication to Dior is well documented. She's known to love pumps, handbags, and makeup from the brand. At Archie's christening in July 2019, she wore a white Dior couture day dress. At the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, she wore a Stephen Jones for Dior hat. On a royal tour of Morocco in 2019, she wore another cream couture gown. Her feminist values in many ways align with those of Maria Grazia Chiuri, creative director since 2016. You could imagine the two bonding over the work of author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a Dior collaborator, and assume that Meghan must have a £690 "We Should All Be Feminist" slogan t-shirt, as worn by Dior models in 2016, somewhere in her Montecito closet. Harry wore a Dior suit for his father's coronation in May, as well as his recent London court appearances. A source close to the Sussexes told The Telegraph that the prince has inherited his long existing relationship with the house from his mother, and he simply likes working with Dior and wearing their clothes. Rather than fronting big money advertising campaigns, as other Dior house ambassadors such as Oscar winner Natalie Portman and tennis star Emma Raducanu do, perhaps Meghan's passion for Dior will work its way into one of these more informal arrangements. When celebrities and influencers are ubiquitous, the prestige of dressing royalty will always carry cachet.
The Grifters story is fascinating because, coincidentally, I heard the reason why he called them the Grifters, and that is because they're scroungers, the Sussexes.
Very recently, it was reported that the Middletons are facing great financial difficulty. And I note that this was skimmed over in the news because we see where the cover-ups lie, and again, why certain things are reported in a certain way. So let's take, for instance, Gary Goldsmith, who is Carol Middleton's brother, Kate Middleton's uncle. And it's no secret that he is allegedly a dubious character. And when we talk about Carol Middleton, she comes from humble beginnings, and apparently Michael Middleton, Carol's husband, his wealth was allegedly inherited, allegedly making the family multi-millionaires. It was also reported that when Kate came to the royal family, when she was involved with Prince William, she did not have a job. And the Queen expressed concern and actually told her to go and get a job. According to reports, the Middletons are multimillionaires via their party pieces, party planning business. But having seen, various companies which are a lot larger than theirs, not even turning over $1 million on an annual basis. It's like, how are you millionaires from that little business that you started at home? But they would have you believe that they've made investments here, there. So if that's the case, why did William pay the deposit for their home in Bucklebury? Allegedly, according to certain articles. And again, if they're multi-millionaires from their business and various investments, why are they almost in £3 million worth of debt? And why do they owe over £600,000 to the taxman, HMRC? Furthermore, why do you think that William is not helping them with this debt? If we want to go further, do you remember last month when Eurovision opened and there was the scenes where Kate was apparently playing the piano to open Eurovision, and she was dressed in how she was dressed, I loved her dress. She actually looked amazing. I'm not a piano player, okay? I'd love to learn to play the piano, and I will do one day, but I would not have spotted what these people were saying. So with all of that, I'm just trying to get you to see that Meghan's paternal family have shown you who they are. And based on that, Meghan is not deemed worthy to even put her big toe over the threshold of Buckingham Palace. However, the royal family are understandably protective of Kate and her family, because this, after all, is going to be the future Queen of the UK. I'd also like to remind you that Harry and Meghan do not want to be taxpayer funded. They've always said that, and that's why they said they wanted their financial independence. But dark forces would like nothing better than for this couple to fail miserably when they sign a multi-million-dollar deal it's outrage when that deal supposedly doesn't succeed. They have to talk about it. The 1%, and if you know what I mean by the 1%, you know what I mean by the 1%. They've always managed to generate multiple streams of income, which is why Boris Johnson can easily afford to resign as Prime Minister and then subsequently as a Member of Parliament, based on findings that were discovered over the last couple of weeks over Partygate. And he can walk into a job as a newspaper columnist, because he's done that before. He's got contacts. These guys always have contacts. So they can easily go from one venture to another. Money's not an issue for them. Okay, but it's almost like that type of access is reserved to a certain type of person. Not someone like Meghan. She's not allowed. She's not allowed to make money. She's not allowed to have ambition. She's not allowed to even dare to think that she could be successful in this life. If you want to talk about being deceived, consider how you're being grifted as a British taxpayer to fund the lifestyle of a family, the head of which could potentially end up with your assets if you haven't made a will and no relatives come forward to claim those assets after you've passed. The monarch's inherited assets are not subject to inheritance tax, but yours are. But you're okay with that. Consider how you're being grifted by a government who ordered you to stay inside in isolation while they were drinking and dancing and partying, and to add insult to injury, they were laughing at us. But you're okay with that. Consider how you're being grifted by your GP, who was paid almost £13 per procedure for every single one. You had to sign a liability waiver just in case something happens to you as an adverse consequence. But you're okay with that. If your thoughts were provoked in any way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't yet become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you shall catch me in the next video.